His name is Brad Kay. He's the projects developer for Cromwell Solar here in town. So he's the guy who goes out and figures out projects and works with people to figure out what they need so they can get their stuff done. So he's pretty much on top of top to bottom what solar means, both industrial and residential. So with that introduction, I'll turn it over to Brad, and he can introduce himself further, and then let me know when you're ready to, or whenever you're ready, just go to screen sharing and put your presentation up. So thank you, Brad.
All right. Thank you, Jack, for having me here. Thank you to the Lawrence Tech Club here. Today, I'll just go over kind of the basics of home solar, what it is, what it costs, how it affects your electric bill, and kind of the benefits of having solar on your home here. I've been with Cromwell for 3 years, but Cromwell itself has been around since 1982 doing solar. So we've been in business over 40 years now, since before solar was cool. So we got a lot of experience here. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and get the presentation rolling here. All right, everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
We're good. We're good.
So, Cromwell Solar, we do residential and commercial solar, electric vehicle chargers, and backup generators in Kansas and Missouri. As you can see here on the right side of the screen, we have helped Mid-America Bank. You've probably seen our work at 6th and Monterey at their Mid-America Bank location there, as well as the Merck grocery store. We did all of the carport solar and the rooftop solar there that helps power them. Something that's great for them is that during a power outage, they do not have a power outage. They keep working, that way they can keep their refrigerators on and don't lose any product. It's probably one of the biggest benefits here of solar. But to start with solar, we always like to start with talking about your electric bill. What are you paying? Evergy is the main electric provider in Lawrence. Used to be Westar. And so they have an interesting billing method. Everybody gets a customer charge. That's basically just being connected to the grid. It's about $14 there. And then you get an energy charge. But with Evergy, it's not just one charge. It is a bunch of little charges that add up to one thing. So as you can see on the right side of the screen here, we have an energy charge for the first 1,000 kilowatt hours that you use this month. Kilowatt hours is what we track our energy in. And then they have a second energy charge for the next 468 kilowatt hours. Then they've got 6 other charges here that are a little bit smaller. It's 1 cent per kilowatt hour here, another 1 cent there. But all in all, they add up to make your bill. With solar, it can actually offset all of those charges except for that main customer charge. Everybody's got to pay that still, but with solar, you can alleviate all the other charges on the side of the screen there. How we figure out what kind of solar to get you, we take a look at your bill to see what your monthly usage is. That way we can figure out how many solar panels you might need, or if solar is even the right thing for you. With Evergy, the price has never gone down. It doesn't go up much each year, but it has never gone down. Right now, it's about 10 to 11 cents per kilowatt hour. A couple of years ago, it was about 9 cents. So it goes up about a cent every couple of years there. And then the other thing with Evergy is that you own your home, you eventually pay it off, and you don't have a mortgage payment anymore. With Evergy, you just keep paying indefinitely whatever they tell you to pay. The nice thing with solar is you're basically prepaying for your energy. You pay for the solar panels, they're producing the energy for you, and it helps you not have to pay Evergy quite as much. This is an electric bill that went solar. This person lived in Wyandotte County, so they use BPU, so it's a little bit different view here. But with this, as you saw on this past screen, there was usage every month on the graph. So every month they had a little bit of a bill. This page, there are multiple months: May, June, July, August, October, March, April, and May, where they did not have an electric charge. It keeps doing that. So about 7 months out of the year, they just have to pay their customer charge, and that was it. No energy charge at all. The other months out of the year, it was about $27 to $50 on those months. So instead of paying $150 a month, their maximum bill was about $25 in January. So that's a pretty nice change there. Basically, how it works is you're buying your energy instead of renting it. So when you have solar, you're safe from inflation. You don't have the problem with Evergy raising rates on you or changing how they're charging you. You're producing it yourself, and then Evergy fills in the gaps whenever it's maybe a snowy day or overnight. Whenever the sun's not out, you'll use Evergy then. This is a recent home we did here near Bonner Springs. They had a nice south-facing roof. When looking at your roof, you want to have a south-facing roof if possible. The nice thing about that is it gets you good sun exposure year-round. It doesn't mean a east and west-facing roof is bad. It's just not quite as good as a south-facing roof there. Another thing to note is that they don't have any trees near their house. That is the biggest factor there. They had small tree down below the house right there, but it barely causes shade on the corner. If you don't have any trees around your house, you have a good setup for solar. There are a lot of spots in Central and North Lawrence that have a ton of trees around the house where it just doesn't make sense for you to have solar panels. But what we do is we check out your roof. We see if you have enough sun exposure, what your electric bill is, to see if it makes sense for you to offset it with solar there. We try and make it a nice even block of solar panels. That way it doesn't look disjointed here on multiple different levels. We like it to look nice. They are all black panels, so there's no grid lines or anything showing. They look pretty smooth. They kind of look like just a big skylight on your roof there. This section over here on the right side, the graph, the gray line graph is what the usage was for the last 12 months for this homeowner, what they were paying Evergy before. The blue bar graph section is what solar would produce each one of those months. So there, again, a lot of these months where the blue is outproducing the gray, so they would not have an electric bill except for that customer charge, that $14 base charge. And then a couple of months here, July, August, September, where they have maybe a $30, $40 electric bill. But the nice thing is it's not 150, 180 bucks like it used to be for them. And then one of the big manufacturers we like to use is Panasonic for our solar panels. They're about to build a big plant here for batteries in DeSoto range there. We really like to support Panasonic because they are a long-standing producer. They're not some startup that could be gone in a couple years. We know that they have high-quality products, and they have a great warranty. Solar panel warranties, right now it's 25 years. That'll cover the panels, and it covers anything that's not nature related. So when I'm talking nature related, that's hail damage or maybe a tree falling. Hail damage is the only real thing that could happen to the panels that's outside of your control. Otherwise, they just sit up there. There's no moving parts. You don't need regular maintenance on them. You don't need to clean them off. If you're in the city, especially, you never need to clean them. Rain will do the trick for you. If you're out in the country and you have a dirt road or a gravel road that kicks up dust, you might need to spray them off with a good hose every now and then. But otherwise, they just kind of sit up there and they work. With that, hail damage is covered by your homeowner's insurance. Homeowner's insurance is really good here because it completely covers solar panel replacement, or let's say you want to need to get your roof replaced once the solar panels are up there. Insurance will cover the cost of us to come out, take the solar panels off, and put them back on after the roof is replaced. And so you don't have to worry about out-of-pocket expenses in the future catching you off guard. The other nice thing about it is that there is constant monitoring of the solar panels. So that way, you know, and we know how the panels are doing at all times. We can track the monthly usage to make sure it meets the expectations of what we promised. And within that, it'll notify us and you if there's ever a problem with the solar panels. Maybe there's some sort of electrical short that happens, or hail damage came and broke one of the panels, the rest were fine. It'll let us know which panel needs to be replaced, and we can get that taken care of for you within your insurance. I'm sure you're all wondering, what is the cost of a solar system? So the average cost of solar system is around $25,000 to $32,000 for about a 3-bedroom house. That's a typical family-sized house there. For people who are, maybe 1 or 2 people in the household, and it's a smaller house, you could easily be looking at 18 to 20,000. So it's not always that expensive. That's kind of a typical 4-person family house there. With that, we take a look at here the cost of doing nothing. This is the cost of your electric bills over a 25-year span. If we just took the average electric bill of about $180 a month, multiplied it by 25 years, this person's electric bill was cut down to $15,000 over 25 years. The net cost of solar was $22,000 after all tax credits. And then there was the savings of about $32,000, which is equivalent to the total cost of the system. The total cost of the system minus the available incentives is how we got that net cost. That available incentives can work differently for every person. It is a federal tax credit that covers 30% of the system cost. So in this case, almost $10,000 was covered by the federal tax credit. The big thing to note with that is we like to make sure you talk with your tax preparer about how you can get that, because it's based on how much you pay in taxes each year. If you're retired, you probably don't pay a lot in taxes each year, maybe zero, but you do maybe have investment income coming in that you end up paying taxes on at the end of the year. This would offset that tax basis whenever you're paying taxes at the end of the year. So for people who are still working and are W-2 employees, they usually get the whole tax credit back in year 1. Let's say you only paid a couple grand in taxes. Maybe you said $2,000 you paid in taxes this year. You would get $2,000 back on your tax return thanks to this tax credit. And then the rest would roll over to the next year. You'd get more back then and keep rolling over for up to 5 years until you've received it all. So if you're looking into going solar, you want to make sure to talk with your tax preparer or your financial advisor about it to make sure that they can help you get that tax credit either back as soon as possible or spread it out over a few years so that way you get the maximum benefit there. The average payback on solar is about 12.9 years. How that works is it's just the amount of money you're saving every month on your electric bill until it reaches the amount of money you spent on solar. So that's usually about 12 years, 13 years, whenever you reach that. After that point, it's basically paid for itself. With that, there is a payoff if you were to move or sell your home. and somebody were to buy the house, it is now a bigger, better house than it was before when you were trying to sell it, because somebody's buying a house without an electric bill, essentially. They're automatically saving over $100 a month, if not a couple $100 a month on what they would spend on their budget. And so now this person can spend more on your house instead of on these electric bills. So on average, if you go to Zillow, the average home price goes up about 4 to 5% if you add solar on it versus the house that does not have solar. Here are a couple of houses that we've done recently. As you can see up here, they are all black panels. They look pretty smooth. We can do multiple angles on a roof if needed, because not all houses are made the same. We can work with your HOA to make sure that they approve of the panels as well. We do have a master electrician on staff who does all of our designs and our installations. He's been working on solar since the mid-90s and is one of the most experienced people in the state when it comes to solar. We also handle all permitting and inspections. When you sign up with solar, it is not a fast process. We do a design for you. Then we go into permitting with Evergy and with the city of Lawrence to make sure that they approve of our design. Then we install the panels. It takes about 2 or 3 days to install the panels and make sure everything's working right. And then we have Evergy and the city of Lawrence come out and inspect our work before it's all turned on to make sure it's safe and up to code there. Again, we've worked with this a lot of years, so we know exactly what they're looking for. We stay up to date on changing electrical codes to make sure it's safe and ready to go for you. So that whole process from sign up to permitting to installation to inspections usually takes about 4 or 5 months there. So it is not a fast process. Let's say somebody signed up in August, they could expect to be installed in December or January there. We also offer a 25-year warranty on the panels. That also includes a leak-proof warranty on your roof. We have a very safe process. We don't mess up the shingles. We've worked with a roofing company to figure out what the best racking system is to avoid leaks on your roof. It will not void your roof warranty. And so it is very safe. And we have had 0 problems with leaks in over 10 years. There's no maintenance required because there's no moving parts. There's no updates that need to happen. Once it's installed, you can just set it and forget it. It's like a crock pot. It'll just plug in and start working. They do have a 40-year expected lifespan. So this is not a short-term process. They are going to be up there for multiple homeowners, most likely. The average homeowner stays in their home about 8 years. If you're lucky that you get to stay in your home for 20 plus years, you really get to enjoy the use of the solar panels for that whole time. Then here's a picture of the Merc from up above. People probably haven't seen this section here. We have about 200 panels up on their roof. Grocery stores have just really high electric usage because of all the coolers, lights, freezers, everything going on there. And then we've got the carports out here that also help. Nice thing about those is it gives you shade in the hot days or in the rainy days. And underneath here, there are also electric vehicle chargers that we can charge your car while you're shopping too. So the Merc has a really cool setup that allows them to save thousands of dollars a month on their electric costs and allows them to pay their employees a little bit better because of their overhead costs being down. This is a project we did here in downtown Kansas City. We also did Boulevard Brewery and the Weston Brewing Company. So we've done quite a few projects across the state here. We do offer free consultations. So anytime you can just reach out to us or any other solar company. We always are happy to just answer questions over the phone, get you all the information you need sometimes it's hard to find that information online. One thing I would stress is just don't click any links or ads online that talk about solar, because a lot of those are big companies nationwide that will have call centers that just spam call you all day trying to get you signed up. If you're really looking for solar, you can call a lot of the local companies around here, or just your local handyman. A lot of us will have all the answers you're looking for. Um, all we do is we take a look at your electric bill to get 12 months of energy usage to be able to build a quote for you. Homeowners get the tax credit everywhere. It just depends on how much taxes you pay and to determine how much you get in year one for the tax credit. So make sure to talk to an financial advisor or a tax preparer to make sure that you get the full benefit of that tax credit. It is going to be around until 2033. So that tax credit is not going anywhere anytime soon. Then we also have projects going with small businesses and farmers that get special grants from the Department of Agriculture. So let's say you live in Oskaloosa, or you know somebody in Baldwin City. If they're a small business owner, we can also talk to them and show them some special benefits that are just for small businesses in small towns. They can have a project that gets half the cost covered by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So that's a pretty cool benefit that they get as well. But that is all I have for the presentation here. I'll go ahead and stop sharing, get back to everybody here. And I'd be happy
Okay.
to pull up any more of those slides again if anybody has any questions about specific things.
If you have any questions, please put them in the chat for now. But while you are thinking about that or typing that, I did have a couple questions. One of the questions that came to me when we were first talking about this was some people thinking, and we've discussed this already, so I know the answer, but there was a discussion about energy companies charging extra for people who had solar panels to recover some of the funds they lost. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Evergy used to charge extra fee for solar customers. It was, instead of your regular $14 customer charge, it was about $35 a month if you had solar. But the Kansas state courts struck that down a few years back and said that it was prejudicial to people who were trying to go solar, because it's also, you know, very positively viewed federally and at the state level that they want people to have solar. So they did not. They said that Evergy and any other publicly traded utility company could not charge extra if you have solar panels there. But that is something that they were doing up until about 2018 there.
Okay. A couple other questions are starting to come in. One is, how does battery backup work on this?
Right, great question. So battery backup is really great. It's a little expensive. So we do want to make sure that it is a necessity for you if you want to get into it. Like I said, with the solar panels, it costs about $20,000 to $30,000 on average. Battery backup would also cost about $20,000 to $30,000 additionally there. So right now, most people do not get a backup battery. They just stay on the grid there, send energy back and forth throughout the day. Let's say you do have a battery, you would charge your home first, as everybody's, during the day, you're charging your house up, and then any excess energy goes to the battery. And then as the night comes in, the battery will start running the house and discharge each night until it reaches a certain threshold that maybe you want to save for a backup emergency. Maybe it's 50% of the battery backup in emergency, or 25%. Um, but it'll charge and discharge every single day there. If the power goes out and the sun is out, the grid shuts off, your battery basically creates a closed off circle with your solar and the battery. So then you'd still stay on. But the thing is, we like to make sure people are conservative with their energy usage if you do have a battery backup. Um, we typically tell people to just use what you need. Don't run your house like you normally would, doing laundry and cooking, things like that. You'd still want to act like there is a power outage, so that way it lasts longer, your battery. Um, back up your lights, your fridge, your freezer, fans, things like that. Uh, Large appliances like your air conditioning unit, a heat pump, things like that, could drain your battery pretty quickly if it's not fully charged. Let's say you had a power outage at 10 a.m. and your battery didn't get to charge fully that day. You would have to make sure to not just use everything like normal, and that way it doesn't just drain your battery and then you're out of power just like everybody else within an hour. If you're conservative and you have a fully charged battery in the afternoon, you can last a full day on a standard battery if you're keeping track of what you're using and you're not, you know, using all of your large appliances.
Okay. I have another question from Kay. Does it take a generator?
Oh, so
And that,
yeah, generators and solar don't work at the same time, but they can work on the same system. Um,
okay.
how that works is they have different electrical waves, so they can't be on at the same time as each other. But let's say a power outage happens, the generator would have a transfer switch that turns off the solar and turns on the generator. Then, when the generator detects the power is back on from the grid, it turns itself off and turns the solar back on there. So it is automatic if you have a standby generator. Let's say you have a smaller generator you got at Home Depot and you turned it on yourself. There would be a switch that we would show you that's a manual shut off switch for the solar. That way you're not, you know, having them work at the same time, because it could just be a hazard and you don't want to, mess with the across the electrical wires there. But
Okay.
a lot of people will have solar and generators work uh, on their house there.
The next question, you're going to love this one. The next question comes from Ellen. Thanks. I worked with Brad and he is great. So there you go.
Oh, thanks, Ellen.
Is there any organization or group advocating to increase the payment we get from the excess we generate?
Yeah, so there's a Clean Energy Business Council based out of Topeka. It's basically a lobbying group that we're a part of, and Good Energy is a part of that as well. And we're just trying to get better solar policies and renewable energy policies for the state, because there are states like California, Colorado, and Texas that will credit you extra on top of your bill outside of just what your electric usage is. Evergy, let's say you overproduce more energy than you need, they will zero out your bill up to that, zero, but they won't give you like a check back at the end of the year for overproduction or anything like that. So
Okay.
hopefully someday we'll get some nicer rules there.
Kevin asks, I have heard that if Evergy goes down, you can't use the power from your own panels. Is that the case?
So that is the case if you do not have a battery, correct. The reason for that is if the solar is working and the grid is down, they don't want power going back to a broken grid, broken transformer while people are working on it. If
So
you
the
have a battery, then you're a closed off system and you can keep using the panels.
so the price you quoted, the amounts you quoted in general, included a battery or not?
No, those prices
Okay.
were for just solar that's on the grid.
Okay.
If you add a
Just so everybody,
battery, you'd be looking at like a $40,000 to $50,000 system instead.
just so everybody understands, and I'm sure you would explain that if they came to you, but okay.
Right.
Uh, the next question is how has solar tech improved over the past 10 years?
Yeah. So each year, the panels get just a little bit better as far as wattage goes. About 10 years ago, we were working with probably 250-watt panels, where at the maximum amount of power at the best time of day, that's about the most amount of power it would create. We're working with 400-watt panels now, so they've almost doubled in power capacity for the same size panels. And then the big thing that's happened recently is the inverters have gotten better. The panels are all connected to an inverter, which is the brains of the situation. That's what's talking to your house and the grid and all that. Those are 98% efficient now, with just 2% power loss on average from panel to house. So the inverters have gotten a lot better. The panels will continue to get a little bit better. They'll probably get more efficient, maybe even smaller as we keep going with it. But yeah, most of the things that's happened is really the inverter and battery backup has gotten more efficient and stronger recently.
Okay. Another question, we have an old roof on our house. Will we need to replace the roof before installing solar panels?
We would definitely recommend not installing on an older roof, especially if it looks like you would need to get a roof replacement in the next 10 years or so. You can do it if you really, really want to, but at some point, those panels will have to come back off and put them back on. We do a site visit to make sure that the roof is in good enough condition, no water damage, it's structurally sound. It passes, engineering specifications to handle the amount of weight that the panels are. But if it looks like you might need a new roof, we would suggest getting a quote from a local roofer to make sure that they agree that your roof is either good to go for the next 20 plus years or whether or not it needs to be replaced. We wouldn't want you to have a surprise 5 years down the road where all of a sudden you got to pay for the panels to come back off and back on, or if it is an insurance claim that's replacing the roof, that insurance will cover the cost of the panels coming off and back on. But we would make sure the roof is in okay condition before doing anything.
I will add to that, with our recent hailstorm that we had a couple months ago, if you haven't had your roof checked, you might want to do that, and then you may be in a better position to consider solar, because there was, in our neighborhood, 2/3 of the people are having their roofs replaced from the hail. And some of them, it's not something necessarily that you can see by looking at your own roof. So just throwing that out. Next question from Dina. I have propane and electric. I would like to get off propane because it cost me $850 a month and a month and a half last year. I also have a bedroom that was supposed to be solar powered. Long story, because it's not working. It has pipes along the bottom of the windows, and the pipes go up to water tanks upstairs, so there's no heat in the bedroom. I'm not sure I understand that. Hopefully Brad does. That's her question.
Well, yeah, with propane, the fluctuations of price on that has been pretty crazy the last couple of years. We have quite a few customers who have switched to all electric homes. Maybe they got an electric heat pump for the house instead of a gas furnace. Those are not cheap to get, but they are cheaper in the long run compared to dealing with propane. That's for sure. And they're more consistent. You're not going to have the wild fluctuations. Like I said, electric prices go up every year, but it's very little. It's, a quarter of a cent every year. So you're not going to find those years where it's $400 and then $800 the next year. So I would suggest, if you're looking at going all electric, maybe find your favorite electrician in town and see what their options are for a geothermal or just a standard heat pump instead. It would save a lot of money. As far as the solar water heater that you have with the pipes there, I have not worked with those personally, but I've seen a lot of them around town. And those were really cool when they first got set up, because it's utilizing the natural sunlight to heat the water there. But yeah, we don't personally work with those, so I'm not sure the best way to get those working correctly there.
Okay. How much credit do you get from Evergy for energy that goes back to the grid?
So that's a great question. Any energy you send back during the day, excess, gets credited at the same rate that you would be paying for it. If over the course of the month, though, you produced more than you used, you would not get extra credit for that. It would just zero out your monthly bill there. If you have a system that's quite a bit larger, they don't credit you quite the same. But for all homeowners, really, you get equal credit for any excess energy you produce.
Okay. Chris' question is, another company said I needed an average of $100 a month usage to qualify. What factors apply to efficient users?
So
In
yeah,
other words, if
that
you have a low bill now because you're trying to be efficient, is it
right.
worth it?
That's a weird way that they put that. Saying that you didn't really qualify. I would say that the payback is always better the higher your usage is. Let's say you have a home that uses $200 a month, you would see bigger savings with that. If you have a home that uses $100 a month, for instance, you would get a smaller system. You might just have, instead of a 12-year payback, maybe it's a 13 or 14-year payback on that, just because your costs aren't as high. So kind of like going to Costco, the more you buy, the better the price there. Yeah.
If you're an efficient user, would you go in and say, well, we can do this for 3 less panels or something like that? Is that a factor that would?
Exactly. Yeah. You could buy a smaller system. Maybe instead of a, 15 panel system, you get a 10 panel system that's, $18,000. And, it's still going to do the exact same things. You just, since you're such a efficient user, you don't have high bills, you get a smaller system. And yeah, that's the only difference really, is just that the cost per panel gets better the more you buy there. So I guess the person that was trying to sell you on that, but then said you didn't qualify, was maybe just looking for a bigger sale. I guess I don't know. It was kind of a weird deal that they wouldn't want to help you out with that. We do. I did a 6-panel system not too long ago, so we do small systems all the time.
Okay. Another question, this one from Leslie. Can you start out with a couple of panels and add on more at a later date?
You
And I
can.
guess the question is both, can you do that? And is that less cost efficient over the long run?
It is less cost efficient just because the less you buy, the higher price per panel. And then also, then you're buying, a system this year and maybe you add on next year. Well, now you're paying for another round of permitting, another round of an engineer doing your design, and things like that. So it's just a little bit more cost effective to buy, you know, we usually design systems that cover about 80 to 90% of your power needs. And it usually is most cost effective to get that level there. Um, but people recently have been adding on panels to old systems because they got an electric vehicle or added on, um, an electric furnace. And so then they're like, okay, I've had, an 80% offset system. Now I use a lot more energy, so I've added on 4 more panels. That's pretty common right now. Yeah.
Okay. On a 40-year life expectancy, how much loss of efficiency over the life?
Yeah, great question. So that's basically what's guaranteed in the Panasonic warranty, is that it's about a 0.3 to 0.5% annual degradation of power there. And so their warranty will guarantee, I believe it's 86% production of what it was on day one on year 25. So it will slowly go down a little bit. So then even after 40 years, it still should be over 75%, close to 80% of what it was on day one there. At that rate, they're still covering a huge portion of your bill. It might be the next homeowner. At that point, also the inverter, maybe you will have changed out some of the components after 25, 30 years there. But yeah.
Okay. This is from Kevin. I heard the energy you produce is valued at the retail cost of 11 cents, but Evergy is paying you only wholesale for excess 4 cents. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, so that is only if you have a large system. The main average system size they measure in kilowatts, which is the amount of panels times the wattage of the panel. Um, the average system size is between 6 kilowatts to 8 kilowatts for the average home. Um, if you get a system that's 15 kilowatts or more, so this is for a pretty big home. This person has probably $400 electric bills if they're getting that big of a system. Then they have different rules for a 15 kilowatt system size or higher. Then they only credit you extra about 4 cents per kilowatt hour at that time. If you're under that 15 kilowatt range, which almost every homeowner is, you get equal credit for anything you send back versus what you use there.
Okay. Dave wanted to know, with more EVs, how will solar help with those costs to recharge?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's going to be a big strain on the grid if, as we're adding so much more energy usage, they need a lot of power output. So if people are charging at the same peak hours of the sun, it'll really help because then that'll be the first thing that the solar's powering is your car there. If you're charging in the middle of the night, that's all grid energy. And so, what Evergy is actually wanting to do, they're already doing it to Missouri customers starting in October, is put out time of use plans where they'll charge you different rates during different hours of the day. That way, they can kind of incentivize people not using energy during like the 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. hours. If you have solar, your first bet is going to be anything that happens during the day, use power then, because that's going to be your own power as opposed to the grid. Um, as you add on things like that, um, you know, we'd be happy to help give you an idea of like, all right, if you charge a car from noon to 4, that's when your peak energy output is going to be. Then it won't even have an effect on the grid, really.
Okay. We're starting to run out of questions, but I had a couple of them. We talked about hail damage and you talked about how easy it is to replace and covered by the insurance, but how regularly and what type of hail will damage these? Every time you have a hailstorm, or does it, is this only if they're quarter size hail, or what, is there some kind of rule of thumb, or are you looking at almost every time there's a hailstorm, you're going to have to replace some panel?
Yeah, great question. So these panels are going to be about as sturdy as your windshield of your car. If your windshield's not breaking, these panels won't be either. It's been 5 years since we'd had any hailstorm break any of our panels, and it was out in Northwest Kansas, Norton. If anybody's heard of that one, they had a 30 panel system. 3 panels broke under it was like baseball size hail. So the hailstorms that came through here, Lawrence and Tonganoxie recently, we are taking panels off and replacing or putting them back on for 10 different homes. Uh, the roofs all had hail damage and none of the panels were damaged at all in those 10 homes. So we didn't have a single panel get hurt by this recent hailstorms.
Thank you.
It's they're pretty sturdy these days, which is nice. It's not something you have to worry about too much, but it is something you definitely want to protect them from with your insurance, so just in case.
Okay. I don't see any more questions in the oh yeah, I'm sorry, I missed one. Do your systems use a single inverter or have a daisy chain failure, and does each panel have its own inverter?
Yeah, so we work with 2 main inverter types. The best one that we like to use the most is Enphase microinverters. They are kind of the big name in inverters. Every panel will have its own microinverter underneath it. That way they work separately and they all go to one main inverter on the side of the house that's tracking what's happening at each one. If one is partially shaded or one breaks, it doesn't affect the other ones. The other brand we like to use is Solar Edge. They do the same thing. Every panel is going to have its own tracker, and basically they're all working separately but together at one thing. Um, and so, yeah, they're great for monitoring. That way, you know each panel, how each one is doing. If there's maybe a tree on the east side that shades half your roof in the morning, you'll be able to look at your panels online or on your phone and see, oh, wow, these 8 panels over here are in the sun, these 4 are in the shade. And then as you go throughout the day, you can see how they're starting to produce, and maybe these ones are, producing more throughout the day. But yeah, each panel is going to have its own tracker and inverter on there.
Okay. There's a question from Ellen. Evergy is asking for an increase estimated at $14 per month. Is that based on usage? And if so, and so if we have excess, it would, I'm sorry, it would be nil. In other words, they're asking for an increase, but will that affect an excess? If you're making excess energy, is that going to be of any advantage to you, or just you're still going to go back to zero and that's all you're going to get?
So
I
yeah,
think I worded that correctly.
Evergy does not zero out the um, actual customer charge. They will zero out everything else on there that's energy charge related, but they don't zero out the customer charge. If they were to increase the monthly customer charge for all customers, that would be with solar as well. But they can't increase just the solar customers charge, luckily.
Okay.
So if it's happening to everybody, then it'll happen to you as well. But anything that's energy related, the solar will help.
Okay. Also, does regular homeowners insurance cover solar panels, or do you need a rider that says I have solar panels? And will it?
So homeowners insurance companies all have a little bit different, but pretty much the same deal there. It's all just under your dwelling coverage. There's not a special rider typically. It's just making sure the dwelling coverage is enough to cover any replacement cost of your roof, your solar panels, anything like that. So let's say you have a $180,000 house and you have a $200,000 dwelling coverage liability insurance. Then if these panels are worth more than 20,000, you might see a slight uptick in that so that it covers the replacement cost. Um, some homeowners insurance is as much as $40 to $50 a year extra on your premium. Some of them, if you already have enough coverage, they just make a note that you have this many solar panels. This is the brand, that, this and that. And we can help you set up that with your homeowner's insurance agent there. So sometimes it doesn't even raise the cost of your insurance. Other times it's $20 to $40 a year. But definitely worth it to talk to your agent about it.
One more question. How large are the inverters, and how does one do an installation?
Yeah, so the inverters are going to be, depending on the brand, about a 2 foot by 2 foot box that's put on the side of the house next to the utility meter. Um, they can vary in shape and size from there, but that's about the average there. So they're going to be outside next to the meter there. With the installation, we're putting the racking up on the roof. That way it's racked up into the roof on the rafters. We screw into the rafters directly. Um, they are on these little padded feet that sit up on the roof. They're not big flat shingles or anything that go up underneath your existing shingles. It's padded feet on there. We caulk around there. That way it's leak proof. Um, set the panels up on there on the rack. Get the inverters up underneath the panels. Run a metal conduit line from the panels to the inverter. And then that inverter is connected to your electrical panel in the house. So that way it is sending power directly to the electrical panel first, and then excess gets sent from the panel back to the grid through the utility meter on the side of the house there. So if you have a battery, let's say, it'll power the electrical panel first, then go to the battery, and then if there's excess, it would go back to the grid there.
Okay, I think we have time for this one more question. Do birds damage the panels?
Um, Pretty unlikely. These are again like a basically like a windshield. So they're pretty sturdy. Like if you have a farm and you've got goats or anything like that, and they're jumping around up there, that could definitely damage them if it's hard enough there. Birds, not an issue. Around all of our solar arrays, we put squirrel guard around them or critter guard, basically. It's this hard mesh fencing between the panel and the roof that blocks them from getting in underneath there because birds and squirrels will try to nest under there because it's a shaded spot and it's safe looking. Um, so we put those squirrel guards up. That way it keeps any critters from getting under there and messing with the wiring. And that's included in all of our systems.
Okay. I think that's it. Any other questions before we call it an evening? We're just about at the 5 o'clock hour. Well, as they say in those official meetings, hearing none. I will thank you, and I will ask those of you who wish to unmute and applaud to thank Brad for his time this evening. I thought it was pretty informative, and we had some amazingly good questions. Thank you guys for asking those. Really appreciate it. So thanks again, Brad. Enjoyed it. And if we have any other questions, we'll put up contact information for them to get that. Okay.
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate your time today. Yeah, feel free to reach out at any time. We answer questions all the time. You don't have to be a buyer. You just have to be curious. So we will be happy to just give us a call or shoot us an email anytime and be happy to help you out.
Okay.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you all very much. And we'll see you at the next event you're attending, maybe tomorrow.
All right. Have a great
All
day.
right, bye-bye, folks.